Waterford.
Live from Waterford and the Virgin Media Broadband Studio in Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Sinead. Aherne. Today's top stories. Farmers are continuing to protest outside meat factories in Waterford and across the country. Waterford Minister of State John Halligan is confident about the government's commitment to the North Quays. Gardaí are appealing for information after homes were broken into yesterday afternoon. And in sport, the semi-final lineup is complete in the County Senior Football Championship. Farmers picketing at Dawn Meats in Waterford are hopeful that a resolution to their dispute will be reached. Marathon talks between stakeholders took place over the weekend. However, farmers are continuing to protest. An agreement on the base price they are given is the major stumbling block. This farmer is outside the Carroll's Cross factory.
There is a resolute no, because what was agreed in Dublin today was that a few cents we were given bonus basically. But at the end of the day, they can give you 2 cents on one way, but they can cut you then at the other side. So it's one step forward and 2 steps back. It's not feasible. That is why we are staying here, to bring all this out into the public so the public can understand what we are fighting against.
Farmers are wearing balaclavas and sunglasses on the picket line out in Granny to avoid injunctions. This farmer says they don't expect any cattle to get through the pickets today.
Because of proposed injunctions that they're bringing out. That's basically the reason for it. So most lads are covering themselves up because we don't know what's coming. Nobody wants an injunction on their head, and this is the heavy hand they come with all the time. So we're hoping that they're saying that they're going to kill cattle today, but we're hoping that cattle won't come here today. Our members on the ground are saying they're not going to bring in cattle, so we're hoping they won't. So basically, as I said, small thing will get this over the line.
The farmers now have a voice at the negotiating table, but the man picketing at Dawn Meats in Granny felt the talks went on too long without a break.
We're the independent farmers group. We had 3 people in there in meetings that probably wouldn't be used to doing meetings like that, and I would feel ridiculous to say that they had to stay all night so that eventually someone comes up with some sort of a deal. Those meetings should be called off, resumed the next morning and go on, and so everybody could get a chance to rest and see what the position was.
Waterford Minister of State John Halligan says he pays scant regard to what Councillor Eddie Mulligan says about government investment. The Fianna Fáil councillor fears the North Quays project is slipping through the council's hands. He said at the recent meeting with Finance Minister Paschal Donoghue, he used the words if and when the funding is delivered for this project. Minister John Halligan says the government has made a commitment to funding the North Quays development.
It's all very well for Eddie Mulligan. Fianna Fáil were in power more times than Fine Gael, and they abandoned Waterford. As a matter of fact, the highest employment rate recorded was when they were in power here in Waterford. So I pay scant regard to what he says. The government in the last development plan, the highest tranche of money was given to Waterford, 6 million. They have made a commitment that Waterford is one of the top 5 cities. This will be one of the places they will invest in, and they've also invested, don't forget, 5 million in Waterford Airport.
Meanwhile, Waterford Fianna Fáil TD Mary Butler says the Finance Minister must step up to the plate and spell out what investment is slated for Waterford. Mary Butler agrees with her party colleague Eddie Mulligan, who said it feels like the North Quays project is slipping through the council's hands.
We're the 5th city in Ireland, we're the oldest city in Ireland, and we haven't had our fair share of the cake up to this. He has an opportunity with the budget coming for this capital investment, spell it out over the 5 years, and so that we can plan for the future. Our population is set to grow by 30,000 in Waterford over the next 20 years. It's part of Project 2040. So as I say, this is the time now for the Minister, spell it out clearly and don't leave us in limbo any longer.
Residents in neighbourhoods in Waterford City are being urged to watch out for suspicious cars or people in their area. It's after a home was broken into in Belvedere Manor yesterday afternoon between 12:30 and 7 p.m. Entry was gained through a rear window and cash was taken. Elsewhere, a burglar fled without taking anything after they were disturbed by the occupant of a house in Balnakill at 3:30 yesterday. Joe is from the Belvedere Manor Residents Association.
We have quite a vigilant estate that we've had only recently had meetings with the Gardaí regarding security of properties, and we were just deeply disappointed to hear that somebody had been targeted in the middle of the day, which has caused great distress on the whole estate. So we're hoping that the guards may find who has done this, but obviously the house must have been watched because it was, quite visible from the front road, and we're just very disappointed, and we hope that something can be resolved and this will stop. There's a huge debate in recent times of incidents like this.
Anyone with information, CCTV footage or who saw anything in the area is asked to contact Waterford Garda Station on 051 305 300. Brexit has been negotiated over lunch in Luxembourg this afternoon as Boris Johnson meets Jean-Claude Juncker and Michel Barnier. Both sides were being cautious about the chances of any progress being made as they arrived in the last hour. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe reports.
Hey Michel, how are you? Nice to see you. I'm here, sir.
Neither side gave much away as they arrived for a Luxembourg lunch. Boris Johnson said he was cautious about having optimism for a breakthrough. Jean-Claude Juncker simply saying, "We will see." It's a month out from a crucial EU summit on Brexit and still there's been no concrete proposals from the UK on how to replace the backstop. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, though, thinks there can be a deal.
We need to test whether the EU are really up for a deal because the detail has been shared, the contours of a deal in a package are there, but now it requires political will on the EU side rather than this bureaucratic computer says no approach, which we've seen for too long.
There has been some movement with the British government conceding ground on the idea of an all-Ireland policy for things like agri-food, but that still doesn't go far enough to satisfy Ireland and the EU, and we're still way off reaching common enough ground for a deal to be done.
Single-use plastics such as straws and cotton buds are to be banned under new government plans. The new waste strategy wants to see the country's dependence on landfill cut by 60%. Fees on non-recyclable plastics such as food packaging are being considered. Shane Colgan from the EPA says a big priority is to also reduce the amount of food we waste.
As a householder, you're probably throwing out something like €700 worth of food every year. So there's quite a lot. Some of the things that we are all throwing out are bread. You buy a bread, you don't get through all of it before it starts going stale. Those bags of salad, people buy a lot of those, they go off. So we'd say to people, if you're serious about this, just spend a week looking at your food waste. Leave it aside, have a look, say, oh, it is bread. Bread's my one, I better target that, or whatever it is.
Petrol prices could rise in the coming weeks as a result of attacks on 2 Saudi Arabian oil plants. There's been widespread condemnation of the strikes, with the US warning it's locked and loaded to respond, as Sean O'Regan reports.
Saturday's attacks on 2 oil facilities in Saudi Arabia knocked out more than 5% of the global supply. As a result, oil prices surged by at least 15%. With well over 6,000 kilometres between ourselves and Saudi Arabia, you'd be forgiven to think it wouldn't really affect us. But Conor Faulkner from AA Ireland says an increase in petrol prices could be on the way, depending on the price of crude oil.
So if it stays up over $70 per barrel, well then we know that's a retail price increase in the post to us coming down the tracks, and we'll get it in a few weeks.
US President Donald Trump tweeted to say America is locked and loaded, ready to respond. They think Houthi rebels in Yemen were supported by Iran, but a spokesman for the Iranian Foreign Ministry denies they were behind the attacks.
We reject these types of statements and projections. The Islamic Republic of Iran has clearly declared that it supports the people of Yemen and their rights. But to accuse Iran of these attacks and defensive measures is in line with the US policy of maximum falsehood.
In the US, Californian motorists are to be hit the hardest as the state relies on Saudi oil imports more than any other.
2 Waterford businesses have been recognised at the Georgina Campbell Irish Food and Hospitality Awards. Glasha Farmhouse in Ballymacarbery was named B&B of the Year, while Grow HQ in Waterford City picked up the Cafe of the Year award. Olive O'Gorman from Glasha Farmhouse spoke to Mary and Ollie on the Big Breakfast Blah.
Hands on the whole time, and the crew and my staff are wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Without my staff, such a good staff, we wouldn't get there. We just wouldn't achieve this award.
WLR Sport.
Very good afternoon, I'm Gavin, Whelan. Starting with news of Gaelic Games, and reigning champions the Nair came back from 10 points down to defeat Rhine by 115 to 211 after extra time in another dramatic county senior football quarter-final at Farrfield last night. First half goals by Lorcan O'Careen and Fergal O'Careen put the Gaeltacht men in the driving seat, while Donny Burnock shot 5 points. A Craig Gyree goal on 41 minutes started the comeback for the Nair before Shane O'Mara forced extra time with a late free. Points from Shane Ryan, Tom Byrne and Kieran Welch in the additional 20 minutes got them over the line. Nair forward Shane Ryan said that they never panicked despite the nightmare start, but says they did make some costly errors in the opening period.
We kind of, I suppose, put things straight at half time. It wasn't good enough, I suppose. Look, there's no point saying otherwise. We kind of turned over a lot of ball in the first half. I think we made a few fumbles and stuff that gave them momentum going forward, and we weren't doing the basic things right. We were just giving possession away too easy, so we tidied that up. And look, we had a little talk half time, came out the second half, made sure we got on the scoreboard early, and just getting the ball to the right men in the right positions. And once, as I said, once the goal came, we felt we're right in this game, and we could kick on from there.
The semi-final draws then were made afterwards. It'll be a repeat of last year's semi as the Nair will take on Balnacourty in the last four, while Stradbally will face Rathgormack. Rathgormack booking their place in the quarter-finals by virtue of a 212 to 113 victory over Goldtier in Kill yesterday. Their manager Ger Power was thrilled to get over the line, having failed at this stage over the last number of years.
Yes, Gavin, well, it was a hard-earned victory. Like Goldtier were really well prepared under Martin O'Connor there. They had an awful lot of work done, and that was very obvious, and they were really up for the game. And I suppose that's no less than we expected. They've got a lot of good players, and they were well prepared. So yeah, they got off to a great start. Again, similar to last year, they went into a 5-point lead early in the game, and but in fairness to our lads, they stuck with the task and they knuckled down and gradually worked themselves back into the game, and just persisted with our game plan, and luckily enough we came through in the end just about.
And you can hear more from Ger Power in this evening's On the Ball programme from 6:10 here on WLR. Next to news of rugby, and Ireland scrum coach Greg Feek says Robbie Henshaw's absence from the World Cup opener against Scotland isn't a cause for panic. The Leinster centre has been ruled out of the game against Scotland in Yokohama this Sunday after suffering a hamstring injury in training. The 26-year-old could still feature for Ireland later in the tournament, with scans suggesting the injury isn't as bad as first feared. Scrum coach Greg Feek says they've spent their entire pre-season campaign preparing for setbacks like this.
As you know, our collective has always been something we pride ourselves on, and we back everybody to fill a spot. The beauty is, in this time, every 4 years you get to spend a lot of pre-season together as well, so everyone knows their roles really well. So and that's what happens. We just got to back whatever happens in terms of personnel.
Joey Carberry is expected to feature against the Scots. The Munster out-half has returned to full training after missing 3 of the 4 pre-season games due to an ankle injury. Soccer and Crumlin United will be hoping to pull off one of the all-time great FAI Cup shocks tonight. The Dublin side take on neighbours Bohemians in the quarter-finals this evening with a last-four meeting against Shamrock Rovers. The prize on offer kick-off there is at 8 p.m. Meanwhile, cross-channel West Ham United could end the night in third place in the Premier League. The Hammers are targeting a third win in a row when they travel to struggling Aston Villa. Manuel Pellegrini's side have enjoyed their best start to a Premier League season in some 6 years. Kick-off for that win in Villa Park is at 8. And in racing, there's an 8-race jumps card at Galway today, with the first going to post up west at 3:45. That's the latest on WLR. Our next bulletin is at 2.